Okay, welcome back. In previous videos, I talked about traditional approaches to used in implementing enterprise information systems. At a certain point in time, when the system has been customized or configured and ready for use, you need to transition from the old system to the new one. And for this transition process, you can follow one or the combination of the following three approaches. These are Big Bang, phased, and parallel approaches. Now let's see some details. In the Big Bang approach, as the name hints, in fact, you transition from old to the new system at a certain special date. Okay, and this is rather an important moment. Through thorough planning and careful preparation becomes very important, of course. And of course for you, it's very relevant and important. What is more important, at least for you, about these approaches are the pros and cons. So the Big Bang implementation strategy converts from old to the new system within a relatively shorter period of time than if the project followed a phased or parallel approach. And it's also likely that the Big Bang transitions are technically simpler and have lower implementation costs. Basically, the pain and all difficulty is condensed into a shorter period of time. Everyone in the organization focuses on this date and for this particular implementation. And another benefit that is that the employees need to be trained only for this for the new system and not for the changeover period, as you will see in the other way of transitioning. But of course, on the other side, we have some cons. This approach is known to be quite risky. If something goes wrong, you might be simply doomed, as the recovery or going back to the old system is typically not possible, or it's very, very costly. And it's sometimes the case that unforeseen things happen just before, and the things are rushed and details are overlooked. And under these kind of intense circumstances, the changes to the business processes, the new design may not be the best one for the organization. And it's also obvious that this approach will require a higher level of resources and commitment of the project team at the transition date to support the go live. That's Big Bang. Now, how about the phased approach? Like in this one, the company moves into the new system in a series of steps. Okay, either per functional module at a time. That is, you do the finance module first, then HR, then production, and so on and so forth. You can start with the core modules and then proceed with the secondary ones, or start from the very easy one and then go with the most critical one. Or you do the phase approach per branch or per geographic region. You implement the entire system in a particular branch, for instance, to see if and how it works, and gradually move to the other branches and to cover the entire company at the end. And this type of phased approach is also referred to as the pilot approach, by the way, I should note. Or by the way, I mean, you can do this, as I said, functional per function or per geographic location, or you can do both, meaning that you can implement some modules in a pilot branch, then gradually move to the other branches, and in the meantime you implement other modules in your pilot to be later spread over the entire branches, and so on. Now, again, pros and cons, these are important. In fact, the reason for the existence of this particular approach is to reduce the risk associated with the Big Bang approach. The benefits here is that it allows project teams to take their time in the implementation, in the planning, configuration, customization, and testing of the system, while continuing with the day-to-day business. And of course, on the downside, the overall cost is usually higher and it takes usually longer compared to the Big Bang approach. And okay, these are the hard, let's say, hard facts about the phased approach, but there are also some rather hidden ones or overlooked ones. For instance, these types of projects often lack the urgency and focus of the entire project team, like the case in Big Bang. It can also lead to a kind of change fatigue, which can cause employees to become burnout on constant change. And instead of just getting the project over with a shortened period of time, these projects involve constant change over a prolonged or longer periods, which can be sometimes draining to some employees. Another issue that is also, let's say, sometimes overlooked is the technical challenge that this particular approach kind of brings. And in this conversion period between the old and the old and the new system, there is a continuous fixing and integration of the old and the new system. Okay, let me give you an example from one of the projects that I was involved in. The sales module of a system is that was the case. At least the sales module was ready and running, and the production module was waiting for the next phase. So the company was still using the old legacy system for the production, but in order for all the data to be consistent within the entire systems as a whole, the new sales system has to be somehow and somewhat integrated with the old legacy system until the new production module comes alive. So the same applies for branches. For instance, the data has to be consistent, so all the systems, new or old, in the branches should somehow be integrated during this some period. You can't say to a customer that your data was in the old system, now in this branch we're using the new system, so they are not connected. So that's not of course a valid thing that you can say to your customers, and this brings quite a lot of challenges for the implementation or following this particular approach. So what is the situation in practice? To what extent people go with the Big Bang or phased approach? So this one is based on the data of 2015, and at that time still 3 out of 10 projects go with the Big Bang. So despite the risks, considerable at least portion of the projects go with the Big Bang, and more than half went at least with the phased approach. But this cartoon summarizes let's say the mood of the team and the users in both approaches, Big Bang and the phase. Okay. Okay, now I can tell you that the Big Bang and the phase approaches are quite common in practice, but there's a third one. There's the parallel approach, which you should also be aware of. So in order to reduce the risks even further, I must say, the old and the new system run simultaneously for some period of time, after which, if the criteria for the new system are met, the old system is disabled. So they just run for a certain period of time in parallel. I would say the biggest disadvantage of the system, or let's start with the advantage. The biggest advantage of the system that it offers good recovery options in case something goes wrong, which in fact psychologically really relieves the company a lot. And essentially, if the organization is operating in a kind of mission critical environment, or let's say the system is mission critical, like air traffic control system or the baggage handling system, for instance, which is questionably, arguably mission critical, but yeah, or systems in a nuclear power station, that is mission critical, obviously. Then this way of transition would be, I would say, the only reasonable or meaningful approach. Okay, now although it offers more time for users to adapt to the new system, a big drawback is that it's usually needed to duplicate the actions in both systems. So you do the things both in the old and the new systems to keep all these systems up to date, which is not very nice for the end users particularly. And of course, this process requires careful planning and control, and in which I mean, in turn, would cost quite a lot of money and possibly duration as well. Okay, I just wanted to show you a chart that shows how important the careful planning and execution of the transition is. Now, almost 60% of the projects, that is 3 out of 5, have experienced operational disruptions during go live, I mean during transition period. Some of these lasted about 2 weeks, but some lasted even as long as six months, and I mean 6 months of operational disruptions due to bad transition planning and execution should really be very annoying for the users of these systems and for the customers as well, or obviously for the entire organization as a whole. Okay, I mean that was about the approaches that organizations can follow for system transition. For you as future decision makers, it is very important to know the pros and cons of these approaches. Okay, that is it for now. See you later.